All right, guys. How are you doing, Enrique?
I'm good. I'm great. Just it feels like it was 4 days off and there was 4 weeks of stuff to catch up with afterwards. So
I know, I
I've
know.
been I like to use the term drinking Niagara Falls from a fire hose, and that's what it's been like the last 36 hours. So
Well, I got a lot of good stuff to talk about today, obviously. Like you said, despite the fact that we had a short trading week, it feels like there's been a lot happening. Obviously, I want to talk about crypto. I have crypto on the brain these days. Um, been buying some meme coins, very uncharacteristic of me. I'm not really a crypto guy, but I'm I'm running to where the opportunity is. Buying Dogecoin. It's like my first like smaller coin purchase in a while.
okay.
I'm interested in the miners here. I'm interested in Bitcoin with it consolidating, and just seeing what's next in crypto. We can talk about that. I want to talk about a little bit about the melt up reset that we're seeing early this week. A lot of the really small speculative stuff got hit yesterday with some profit taking. I think that's pretty normal, but we might want to go through some of those charts. We have biotech. I think biotech's an interesting spot here, and I wanted to pick your brain on that one with the RFK panic fake out that we got. Semiconductors are looking interesting here with NVIDIA kind of creeping back from its recent lows. I really like the looks of Apple. I think we can talk about that chart. Tesla's rolling too. And I don't know if you saw this, but that one analyst that's been so bearish on Tesla for years has flipped, and he has a huge
Okay.
case now and has increased his price target. I don't know if that's good or bad, but it's in the news and it happened. So we got that. And then there's some frothy trades out there, some flying cars, other weird growth stocks that are popping off. It's melt up season. That's the type of stuff that happens. So let's dive right into it. What are you seeing in the crypto space right now, and what has piqued your interest?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think a lot of the things that you're talking about that have flown, that really kind of blasted off in in November post election, they're in a very normal consolidation phase. And so, I feel like when you see big moves up or down, most of the time the moves are indicating what's likely to happen in the intermediate term as well. But depending on the velocity of the move, and this is where we talk about overbought, oversold, things like that, you've got to deal with these consolidation periods. So, I was thinking about what you were saying about crypto, and I feel, I mean, my dominant feeling, and I'm pulling up charts here as we're talking, my dominant feeling is I like Bitcoin more now than I did a month ago, even though it's up 20,000, but I'm not sure how much I like it in the next 2 weeks. Okay. And that's kind of my feeling about a lot of these things, like crypto in particular, is that, when you, I'm going to do a crazy example. Let's talk about, I'm going to shift gears completely. Let's
Sure.
talk about what happened with the Russell back in July, because this is a perfect example. So we have repeatedly, and to me, the Russell's just a big stock. Remember that the Russell in its totality, the market cap is smaller than Apple and the net income is smaller than Apple. But the Russell saw like a 4 or 5 standard deviation thrust move in July. Okay. Literally, and I got to write the number down. It was like 1 in 4.9 million or something like that. And then, it was set up that the next week, 2 weeks, month, 2 months, it's going to be real hard to build off of that. But it was such a big thrust move on volume that it told you that there was a wave coming. It's almost like, the tsunami, where there's like the little waves, or the water kind of goes out, first, and then the tsunami comes. And look what the Russell did, 3 months later. I think that this is some version of this is happening to crypto right now. So I think that what we've seen in crypto is analogous to this July Russell move. I am not sure. What I don't know is that how much is crypto going to consolidate and how quickly. I think going into year end, the funny thing is I'm probably more bullish Bitcoin than all the other cryptos, because I feel like that one can receive more of a bid. But just look at this chart of the Russell And imagine that, that we're in July 31st. Okay. And if you're doing any crypto trades right now, and I'm going to bet most of them will look like that July 31st point, just think to yourself, okay, am I set up for this? Right? Am I gonna play this out? If it plays out this way, am I cool? Am I gonna add? Am I gonna hold, etc.? Because you know what? If you were cool and you just were patient, the Russell was at 2254. Now the Russell's 10% higher. And if you were ready to buy down, the Russell's actually 20% higher, something like that. So I think for crypto, I'm sorry, this is kind of long-winded, but it's a very complicated, interesting point where with crypto, if you don't have any crypto today, I would buy some. I'd be walking to the trade saying that I've got a probability of losing 10, 20, 30%, or let's say a 50% retracement, 20 to 50% retracement in the next couple weeks, couple months, but I have an even greater probability that I'm 20 to 50% higher in 3 to 6 months. And that's how this is setting up. So, what does one do with that? It just depends on your risk tolerances and what you want to do. What I do love about what you're doing with Doge, and I wrote about this in the chat. I mean, this is probably 3 weeks ago. Actually, I'm not saying this is why you bought Doge, but I basically said, this is the time that I think you can take, maybe it's 2 weeks ago. I think you can take some of the smaller coins and just put a little bit in. Yeah. Take, take 3% of your portfolio and buy 1% positions. Doge, XRP, which has been having a moment. Yes. And I don't know, maybe Solana. I'm literally just picking, and buy 3%. Be prepared to lose 50% of your money, like highly likely, but you're setting yourself up that I think all of these can go higher. XRP, I don't know. It's gone from, people were telling me it's gone from 50 cents to 250, a straight line. But I like it because, and I'll end with this one last thing, my soliloquy, December is a time to be more aggressive, not less. The tailwinds behind us are tremendous. The only headwind that we have is this chart of, is just how overbought these charts are. Yeah. So that's the funny thing. If these charts all looked like this, I would be pounding the table to like pile on the risk. The problem is the charts all look like this. Right. And so when I go rocket ship, I'm on an Elon Musk SpaceX rocket, I'm hesitant to pile on the risk, but the season's right. So, final piece. I love the crypto trades. I think they're great. I think that you have to look at it intermediate term. I think they're relatively dangerous in the short term, but I would absolutely pounce on them if we see a little, a crypto blizzard, I think could happen in the next 2-3 weeks. And I would pile into the crypto blizzard if you saw it.
Yeah, and I think especially if Bitcoin continues to consolidate, then, the speculators are going to want the juice somewhere. They're going to have to go somewhere for it, and they're definitely going to trickle down to the smaller coins. Not all of them, obviously, but there's going to be ones that really start moving. And even I was surprised Sunday night when I sat down to look at futures and everything else and prep for Monday that I saw, I think it was Ripple and Litecoin both up like 25-ish% on Sunday night, just exploding. It felt like out of nowhere to me. I know that they've been moving all month, but I really hadn't taken notice until I saw those big green bars on the screen. And I had totally forgotten about Ripple and those. I feel like those were the main altcoins of the last cycle, and now they're coming back into play. But
the funny thing, your Doge buy, how would I say this? This is a very peculiar thing to think about too, is when you follow the crowd, eventually it is a super contra indicator. I'm not talking about you. I'm just talking about investors in general. Yes. Yeah. Eventually it's a super contra indicator, but it's a positive indicator until it turns into that contra indicator is the funny thing. Yep. So, what I would do when I look at these is I would look at things like, the 50, 100, and 200 day moving averages. And, as long as they're holding the 100 day, 200 day moving averages, I would, buy them, be ready for them to pull back to those averages, and then add to them on those averages as long as they hold them. Because I think we've started a new trend. It just started with a spike, exactly like the Russell. That Russell chart is so instructive.
Yeah, and that's a great point. And like looking at this and pulling up just the 50, 100, and 200-day moving averages on Cardano. This is just a Cardano chart right here. It was the last one that's requested in the chat. You can see wide open spaces there. It's going to have to come back down and meet those and consolidate in one way or another, obviously. For me, from a psychological standpoint, I need to get involved. And I love how you talk about it as in you buy this, and as you buy it, you have to sort of reconcile with yourself that like, okay, this is going to be down 50% possibly in the future. But if you buy a small enough position, once I'm involved in something, then I'm much more likely, maybe this is just me, but I think this is a lot of traders, I'm much more likely to go back when I get a bounce off support and buy more and add to that position and create a bigger position over time once I'm involved in something that has broken out like this and it has a big regime change, like you were saying.
It's not you, it's humanity, right? It's like if I'm not watching the game, I'm not going to pay attention. But if I don't have the game on TV, I don't know the score, right? These are very peculiar trades, and let's just stick with Bitcoin because they're all the same chart. It's just a matter of velocity. What's I don't know to say perplexing, but I feel like there's a 30-40%. I feel like there's a less than 50% chance, but close to 50% chance that Bitcoin is going to thrust through 100 to 120,000 before year end. It just sort of fits with the calendar. It fits with everything. And I'll be honest, if I missed that, even though it's a lower than majority probability, I would be bummed because I know those trends are underneath there. But I think there's a 50% chance that it sees 80,000 before it sees 120. So what is that insight? But by the way, in all instances, it sees 120, right? In all my instances here. So the way you deal with that is, dollar cost averaging. You say, okay, I'm going to take, if I own a 5% position in Bitcoin, I'm going to buy 2% today. And I'm just ready for it to go to 80. Right. And if it doesn't go to 80 and it goes to 120, well, damn, I just made 20% on my 2%. That's better than nothing. And I followed my primary insight. But my tactical insight was to leg in and make sure that I have the dry powder to take advantage. And just one real quick thing here. My daughter's preschool had a sprinkler go out, so I may have a guest star show up at any point, just so to let you know. All right, so I apologize about that, but just letting everyone know.
We love that. That's great. That would make the show for sure.
Yeah.
So one more question. I think this is something we may have spoken about before on these calls. How do you feel about the idea that due to the fact that Bitcoin is a maturing asset class and it has much more institutional buy-in than it's had in previous cycles. It just, the institutional buy-in keeps on piling up into Bitcoin here. Do you think Bitcoin is not going to have the bigger swings that it had in prior cycles? Do you think it's going to, maybe chill out a bit and behave a little bit more orderly? Or do you think it's still going to just be this rocket ship that occasionally just drops 10, 20% out of the blue?
I don't know, man. Like when I only had this insight a couple months ago, I actually on here, just divide by 1,000 and think of this as a stock that went from 15 to 30, that then went to 60, that went to 90. And if you and I talked about a stock that did that, we wouldn't miss a beat. We wouldn't be like, oh my God, it's the most volatile thing ever. No, it's just a stock. It's just a growth stock, And so I don't. Once I unplugged myself, divide by 1,000, my whole perspective on volatility of Bitcoin changed. And that only just happened a couple months ago. What I will say is the intermediate term risk reward on Bitcoin is by far the best in all of crypto, in my opinion. Now, that's a very important statement, risk reward. Okay. So I think Bitcoin goes to $250,000. I think it goes to $1 million. I think it is as certain as I've felt about one of these kinds of bets, maybe in my career or in the last, decade, 20 years. Now, if Bitcoin goes to $250,000 or goes to 150,000 next year, 200,000, probably Solana and Cardano and all these other things are going to fly. But are we in a world 3 years from now where Bitcoin's at $250,000 and all of those are 50% lower? Yeah, I could live there. Like I could see that happening. So I still love Bitcoin as the best risk reward. And just stair step it like 120, 150. If we were thinking of a stock, I think that it has the same volatility, which was always overstated if people really just thought about it as a high volatile, high return growth stock.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, moving on to the equity side of things, I was looking at HUT, which I still think has a pretty decent chart. Machine's a little slow here. And some of the other crypto miners. I'm kind of wondering if these are going to behave and actually, run with Bitcoin if Bitcoin does decide to, break 100 and go to 120-ish, and what they're going to do after that. I like them as trades if and when they break out, but I'm not too sure what to make of them in the longer term. I really don't have a lot of faith in them as companies. Do you have any type of insight into any of these, or?
It's you actually summed it up pretty well. First off, these are all the same chart.
Yep.
So like my tactical insight on HUT is the same insight as my tactical insight on Bitcoin or any of the whatchamacallit, other cryptos. But then your second point to me is the most powerful one. I don't know that mining is actually fundamentally a good business. There are, let's do a very simple exercise here. Okay, very simple. We like Bitcoin because it is a rare, limited store of value that we think more and more people are going to be buying, governments, companies, people, etc. That's the thesis for Bitcoin. That's all it is, right? It's, as we devalue all other currencies, we're going to buy Bitcoin. These are a derivative of Bitcoin, but they got all kinds of other issues. They got halving, they've got debt, they've got this, that, the other. So, to me, they can be very dangerous ways to play it because, I can have one of these companies have some technical issue. I can have one of these companies have some debt issue. These companies could have 50 problems that Bitcoin is never going to have. Okay. Including there's a secular decline in their productivity. Now, there's an offset if you want to dive into the stock, which is, we're talking about these behind the meter power deals, and these guys have great power and stuff like that. But so I'll break it up into I'll make it a little different. If you're trading the miners to trade Bitcoin, why don't you just trade Bitcoin or levered Bitcoin? Because you got a bunch of ways you can screw this up. That if your insight's on Bitcoin and you're long a miner and it does something stupid, you only have one person to blame. That's you. You should know that. Now, some of these could have additional upside, but now we're talking about individual stock stories. So come to me with an individual miner and a particular behind the meter, this, that, the other. Okay, well, now we've got a conversation about an alpha situation, individual stock. If we're just talking about using them as vehicles to invest or speculate in crypto, just stick with the crypto. I mean, that's my view.
I like that question in the chat about BT conversion of Bitcoin to Ethereum. I don't know much about that, but I've heard of the stock. I figured this was a miner of some sort. I guess it is, but they're converting Bitcoin to Ethereum or something like that. I don't know if that's a good call or a bad call. The chart doesn't look half bad, but I don't have much of an opinion on that matter. I don't know if you know anything about that.
Yeah, you Kramered me on this one. Like I think I'm like Kramer. I had 98% of stocks. I have some idea what they do. I do not know this one. Right. So this is the one where the one time Kramer, it's like every third show, he's like, I don't know that one. Yeah, I don't know enough about it.
That's fair.
I mean, but can I share something with you? I share something with you? Is like that. Here's what I would do real quick. I look at it. It's got a $664 million market cap. Mm-hmm. And it hasn't really caught a bid in all the crypto stuff. So I don't like $664 million market cap stocks that especially aren't catching a bid if they're involved in a hot area. Like that's actually an insight that you don't need to know, kind of what we know it's crypto involved. We know it's got this market cap. We know it's not really caught much of a bid. I mean, yeah, it's gone from three to 440, but I mean, relative to like what we've seen in other areas. So that's not saying anything about the fundamentals. And again, this is a trading call, right? We deal with fundamentals, but as a pure trader, I just be like, I would go through this and be like, next, I want something bigger and I want something that's working. And that's the biggest thing in trading. Like both you and I, your style is you find things that are working that are about to break out. I find things that are working that have stumbled, but both of us are buying good charts. This isn't a bad chart, but it's clearly lagging relative to everything else that's happening out there. So my first take would be, unless you had something really sexy, I'd just move on to the next one. Cause I got 50 other stocks to play these ideas that are better charts and better setups than this.
Yeah, that was my thing about Mara when I kind of abandoned that as a trading vehicle because it just wasn't playing ball when it seemed to matter. Like I wasn't getting the same type of thrusts off of it that I wanted to get, and so it was a hot thing at one point, and then I kind of just was like, I can find better opportunities in the space elsewhere, which is akin to what you're saying. Whereas like if you want to play Bitcoin, play Bitcoin.
Can I say one last thing too? Because I am watching the chat here. It's and someone mentioned that this is a big. This has been one of James's very successful plays. I want to be clear here. We're talking trading, not fundamentals. I haven't read James. This might be an awesome fundamental play that's going to be a 5 or 10 bagger, and absolutely, and obviously. James, he knows what he's talking about. Like there's no doubt about it. But I want to just be clear when we're opining here, we're opining on, trading tactical dynamics, without that. That's not to, so that I'm going to go read his report, and maybe on the next call, we'll talk about the stock, and we'll see where that stands when I combine the fundamental plus the technical.
Yeah. And it's like JC usually says, most arguments about stocks, it's just different time frames. People are just arguing different time frames. They don't realize they're arguing that. BITX is the leveraged Bitcoin ETF that I like. That's what it does. 2x Bitcoin. That's another way to play it. Obviously, like hold on to your pants if you're playing 2x Bitcoin, but small positions, it works. It's the job. I mean, I would obviously not a long-term hold. Again, thinking tactically about these sort of things.
Well, like I said, maybe we'll just end with this because I think it's the same for this group of stocks. Is you think you've got upside of X, buy 1/3 of what you would want to own if you had absolute certainty. Understand there's a 50% chance that you're going to get a bunch of that upside, or 50% chance you're going to lose a bunch of money, but you're absolutely prepared to buy the second third and perhaps the third. That is a successful trade. That's how you buy stocks that are up, or assets, securities that are up, and you do so successfully.
All right. Another idea that I wanted to talk with you about, a little political, but not really, is the biotech panic. So we had RFK Jr. appointed to what's his position? Like some sort of health czar?
Secretary of the Department of Health and Human Services.
Okay,
no, it's
so
actually it's a cabinet secretary. Yeah.
So when this happened, a lot of pharma and biotech stocks plummeted. And then they got bought right back up. And so I'm kind of interested in watching XBI right here. You can see on the chart, this is the teardown right here, a week straight of just getting clobbered, this whole group. And now we're right back here in this range and back on top of the shorter term moving averages. This seems like it could morph into an interesting play now that it's shaken out all those weak hands right there. I don't know if you have any opinion on the sector or anything like that, but I'm seeing some biotech stocks looking pretty good out there.
So it's funny when I started with and I apologize, my long monologue, I spoke about moves that are short-term moves that are indicative of intermediate-term moves and longer-term moves. And I think that's what we're seeing in crypto, a real thrust breakout, all the Russell, et cetera. And my feeling is that when you look at breakouts are much more indicative or more high have a much higher probability to indicate further upside. Breakdowns are a totally another ball game. And, what I'd say is when we see a breakout, 80-90% of real thrust breakouts indicate to me that we're going to have more upside in the future, okay, in the 3 to 6 to 12 month range. It's 50-50 when we see breakdowns, and that's where you really need to dive in. So I absolutely love the trades that RFK is setting up for us. And I love them on there's like 5 different levels. You've got things that were coming off all-time highs. So obviously there was a bid for them. That's number one. And the next few things I'm not going to say are not political. Number two, if he does get appointed, it ain't going to be for a while. So the stocks have time to recover. And this is in fact what's happened. Mm-hmm. Number three, and that's true, even if he's done as what are called these like recess appointments, even if that happens. Number three, if you go on to Kalshi, and I did this the other day, RFK Junior Kalshi appointment cabinet odds. He's only at like 40, 50, like 50% to get.
Really?
Yeah. I had to look at it. The nomination's obviously up there, but so he's obviously nominated. I got to find it. I checked this the other day, but it was like at like 50, 60%. That's actually pretty good, odds that would work in your favor. And number four, is he really that crazy? And number five, how much can he really do? So, but here's my point. We could debate each one of my points about, does he get appointed? Is he going to really hurt the industry? Can he hurt the industry? But you know what? In the next 60 to 90 days, none of that's going to happen. So with these stocks, and it's biotech, it's pharma, there's all kinds of other things. There's another group of these here because there's a second RFK analogy, or an RFK analogy that's just as powerful. These are some of the best trade setups I've seen all year.
Yeah, I'm just looking from a purely like short-term trading perspective. I'm seeing some of these names start to set right back up. This is my twofer. It's a Kathy Wood special, and a biotech in CRISPR right here. I don't like it yet, but I'm starting to pay attention to it and like it even more. There was a big thrust higher yesterday. It was up almost 8%, and you can see how it tried to break out earlier in November right there, and then failed. Still getting stomped a little bit because it's stuck down here in this range, and that's not really a long enough base to get me super interested. But I think in the short term, if this thing can really firm up and maybe get over 57, 58 bucks, then I become a little bit more interested in a trade like this.
And we're not talking about it today, but that's an echo trade. That's a perfect, that's a big idea. I'm familiar with this company. The stock was at 200. Yeah. It fell down to 50. Just real quick, because I finally figured out what I have to search. On Kalshi, if you go, who will be Trump's Secretary of Health and Human Services? Kennedy's at 66. Okay, which is a 2/3. But again, I'm just stacking all these different odds. Yeah. CRISPR. I mean, look, but it's funny with CRISPR. I feel like the thing to do now, a bunch of these is snapped back already and have done it. You should try to pick off the laggards. So I think XBI can break higher. There was a beautiful trade in XBI, but that trade's played out. Take a look at something, and we've talked about this name before, but take a look at something like Lilly. Okay. That's setting up pretty nice. This one got hit. They reported a quarter that was just dumb. Again, they basically said, well, we're gonna not do as good of numbers because we're holding back because there's too much demand. And it's believable because there's data that backs them up. They handled the quarter horribly. The stock gap down. Then RFK came. The stock gap down again. You had the beauty of beauty buying opportunities. Now you've come back, but you still have 100 points on top of you. So, I think that these RFK trades, and I'm going to throw in the other group, which we haven't talked about, which are the Doge trades. Okay. But in this case, Doge is the Department of Government Efficiency. So there are all of these government contractors out there that are companies that have 50, 60, 80, 90, 99% of their revenue from the federal government or from government agencies. And all of them had beautiful charts, and they just got crushed. absolutely destroyed. So someone was asking about, we talked about this the other week, BAH, Booz Allen Hamilton. And this is actually a good question because someone asked, I want to say Mark or Matt, I forget, I apologize. It was on the chat earlier this morning. It's been a busy couple, 24 hours for me. Take a look at this, BAH. And someone asked me, they said, oh, is this still a good trade? These types of moves to go higher are not 6-day moves, they're 60-day moves. So, I think that I'll tell you, this is probably my favorite place to trade right now, because let's compare and contrast to crypto. This is a perfect example. Crypto is very extended right now. Crypto has a great future. Okay. I'm hesitant to apply to add a bunch of crypto, even though I'm into adding risk. Booz Allen Hamilton actually has a great future too. I don't think Doge is going to make a dent in it. Okay. This stock was overbought like crypto. Then it went straight to oversold. I mean, we literally, how often do you see, if you give me a stock, I'm just going to look something up here. Okay. Oh boy. Okay. So this was a 76 RSI on November 5th and was a 24 RSI in November 19th.
That's wacky.
I will tell you that if you give me companies that do that move and did not have an earnings miss, a product failure, or an accounting scandal, you have a 99.9% chance of making money. Okay. Now, I was getting really deep in the weeds there, but my point was you went from very overbought to very oversold very quickly. And ultimately, why did this happen? Well, remember, overbought means potential to go down. Okay. So it was always going to go back to the 50-day moving average. But normally it would have done that by getting to an RSI of 40 or 50. Okay. Or 55. To go from 72 to 25 in 12 days. I mean, you buy that every single time. So I think that, if folks have out there, ideas that they're looking at that are sort of in this healthcare, I would fade the RFK and Doge sell-offs pretty much across the board. And what I would do to go looking for new trades, which we're always doing, but we're not always going to give them away everywhere, is I go in and just say, look, which one of these is like? Booz is a perfect example, because what happened to XBI is going to happen to Booz. This will be a 160 stock, 165 in a week, a month, 2 months. I mean, that's 10% move in a month or 2 months. I'll take that, man. You take that every time.
Yeah, and it all comes back. It's like the same that IWM did in July. It's the same idea, the individual stock, though. I mean, but it's the big breakout and then getting torn to shreds. But over the longer term, 6-8 months down the road, it's going to be higher.
Yeah, and I think this is like this setup. You get these. I feel like maybe three to a half a dozen times a year you get this exogenous event that causes these idiosyncratic sell-offs, and you got to lean into them. So I would say this, take something from this call. I'm going to have a big message here, is December, in a year when the market's up 20%, in the month of December, you should be leaning into risk, not out of it. It's human nature. We're all going to be sitting there going, oh, we got a lot of big returns. Okay, I'm going to go away for the holidays. I'm just not going to pay much attention. I'm going to watch football, whatever. Not if you're in New York, but I'm a Broncos fan. So, but I actually think you should lean into it. You should lean into it because this is one of the highest probability setups, a big up year in an election year in December that you have in the 100-year history of the market. It's just like, it's like going to the table, the blackjack table, and all are left in the shoe are 10 cards, tens and faces. I want to be playing at that table, and guess what? I'm going to bet twice what I would normally. You want to be buying Booz, and you don't want to be you want to be putting your the big bets behind Booz, but small bets behind Bitcoin.
Yeah,
the difference between overbought and oversold.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I love that. I love that idea and the analogy. Moving on to like charts that aren't dipping, the mags are looking pretty darn good, and I guess that makes sense. I mean, we are in a melt up here, but it feels like no one's really talking about them. I mean, they hog the limelight, NVIDIA and all of them. during the first half of the year, and they've kind of faded from the front page. But I mean, you look at a chart like Apple, my computer's been a little bit slow, but I mean, that's a beautiful breakout here. Again, I wouldn't be buying it up here, but we have this massive breakout here. In Apple, Tesla looks really good. I know you have your sexy six and you don't consider Tesla part of it, but that's looking really hot right now. Do you have a favorite mag stock at the moment, or are you
easily by far, not even close?
Okay.
There's one that is head and shoulders above the rest of them. Goog. This company, so they have been blowing away numbers, and Google. So I'm going to tell you something here. Here's some stats. Goog is going to grow earnings. Hold on, I got to pull up the right one here. Goog has posted 27%, is posting 39% earnings growth this year, is expected to post 12 and 14 the next 2 years. They have seen strong earnings revisions. The stock trades at 20 times next year's numbers. Okay. The rest of the Mag 7, if I exclude Tesla, trade at close to 30 to 35 times. The S&P 500 trades at 25, 26. The non-Mag 7 S&P or equally weighted S&P trades at 18, 19. So I can buy Goog. This is the cheapest that Goog has ever been in the entire history of the company. I think it's an awesome setup. I think these are straw men. I think Goog's going to blow away. So when I say blow away the rest of the Mag 7, I won't say that because any one of the Mag 7 could just be up 50%. Tesla could be up another 100% on nothing. Okay. Sure. But you tell me what's the best risk reward? It's not even close to me, Google.
Yeah. I mean,
yes, I think, sorry, I'm responding to the chat. I would absolutely own Google now. Now, what does that mean? You know, I'm taking a 6-month, 12-month view on the stock. Where do I think it goes? 200. We'll do some math here because this is what the institutional managers are going to do. It trades at 20 times. You know, the S&P trades at 28. You know, why shouldn't it trade at 28? Goog's a better business than the than the average S&P company. Yeah. You know, there was something I did, some analysis I was doing. I'm going to blow your mind here. So Goog trades at 20 times, grows solid double digits. Walmart, which is the 10th largest company in the S&P 500, trades at 37 times.
Wow.
I think Walmart's a great company. Would you rather own Goog at 20 or Walmart at 37?
Yeah, that's kind of a no-brainer right there.
That seems pretty easy to me.
Wow.
Mind you, I love Walmart. There's nothing, but I wouldn't touch Walmart stock with a 10-foot pole right now.
Is it? I mean, I haven't looked at the chart in a while. They blew away earnings. I know they've been.
Oh, look, it's got an RSI of a gazillion. I ran the numbers. The other day. Actually, hold on one second. I'm gonna pull up some numbers for you. Give me 1 second here, because I got this right here. So and this is the beauty of RSI. And I'm going to make a point here. Remember that when we're talking about trading, we're just talking about probabilities. There are no free lunches. There is no certainty, but what you're trying to do is stack the bets. And so you can look back at history with overbought and oversold, and it tells you. So when Walmart gets this overbought above an RSI of 72, I got the data right here. Let me pull it up. Let's see here. Okay. In the last 10 years, over 78. Whew, it's happened 11 times. 55% of the time it was up in the next 10 days, but the average return was negative 5%, negative 0.5%. 36% of the time it was up in the next 30 days and down an average of 1.3. And it was up only 56% of the time in the next 90 days, but average was down 4. So these stats, like if you were like looking and I look at these numbers all day long, it's a terrible bet. It's a horrible bet to be long Walmart right now, So that's another topic. But I think when we're talking about Goog and the Mag 7, by the way, I mentioned Walmart's the 10th largest company in the S&P 500. So it's right outside the Mag 7. I think it's technically bigger than Tesla? I don't know. But yeah, Goog would be my favorite of the mags.
Yeah, 750 billion market cap. It's got some size to it. Yeah, I mean, I hadn't looked at the chart in a while. I'd heard that it did well in earnings, but this is way too overextended for me. And I don't really need to look at any of those numbers. I'm seeing all the daylight between the shorter term moving averages. It's stretched,
Well,
man. So,
and the funny thing is like because you know what other stock was like this earlier this year? This will surprise you. Berkshire. Berkshire got this overbought back at the end of August. And the funny thing about these old school mega caps, the technical data works even better. So when Berkshire and Walmart are at RSIs of 80, I don't recommend shorts. They're great shorts. Okay. When Bitcoin is an RSI of 80, it's 50-50 whether it's a great long or a great short. With these old school mega, large caps, they get this overbought. You fade that move every time.
yeah.
And mind you, there's probably some people that are watching that have owned Walmart for 20 years. And you know what? Own it for the next 20. It's a great company. It's going to be awesome. We're talking trading here. But again, I'll go back to what do I like in the Mag 7? It's not even close. Goog is, by far and away my favorite.
Nice. Switching gears a bit again. I wanted to go and take a quick look at precious metals because the dollar is finally losing some steam here, and we're seeing silver reacting accordingly this morning. Gold is up a little bit. It's still kind of stuck in this range. I don't hate it here, but it's not on the top of my list for trades, obviously. My focus is going to be elsewhere just due to, melt up season and everything else. But I think this will set up sooner rather than later, maybe at some point in early 2025, where I'm more interested in the miners, more interested in silver, and those type of trades right here. Silver's up, 1.6%-ish today. Do you have any bigger thoughts on this? Silver actually looks a little better than gold, in my opinion, as far as like buying now.
Yeah. Look, a lot of what we talk about intermediate long-term trends, okay? That's what you always want to have behind you. That's what we were talking about earlier, right? You and I both buy uptrends, okay? You're buying an uptrend with a base about to break out. I'm buying an uptrend that's broken down. Both of us will fade or avoid uptrends that are spiked, okay? What we don't do is we don't go out and short them because that's just not a good way to make money. And I really don't, even though I had $1 billion short book for probably better part of a decade, I don't recommend it to folks.
Shorting's hard.
Yeah, there's a law that could probably be its own its own podcast, 100 episodes. I like these a lot. These are just great charts. They've consolidated. They're solid. They're going to move higher. And, I got guff, about criticizing gold, whatchamacallit, I don't know, a month ago when it also had an RSI of like a gajillion. And lo and behold, it went to the 100-day, it held, and now it's consolidated. Now I like gold a lot. It's just about patience.
Yeah.
You learn to surf the waves. Like, I'll give you one last surfing analogy is like when you got an RSI of 80, it's like you got an 80-foot wave. I don't know, man. It's hard to surf. Even great surfers, it's hard to surf 80-foot waves. But there's a lot of good sets coming in, and you get these like 20s and 30 or whatever 10, 15-foot waves. Those are the ones that you want to surf. So I think we've now gotten to that point. So here I'm going to do something here real quick. We got a special guest appearance.
All right.
But hold on. She's got a special hat. For those who followed my stuff, we've actually got, this is Stone, and she's got her Talon hat on. So I know a bunch of y'all have made some money in Talon. So you want to say hi, Stone? Hi. Okay, there we go. So yeah, that's on the camera.
Top okay, that. That's the best part of the call.
I'll be upstairs in just a little bit. Okay.
Yeah, TLN's looking good.
I just pulled up I mean, speaking of whatchamacallit, consolidation is, I think that spike and consolidate. I think that the biggest thing I'm struggling with right now, this and the IPPs, Talon, Vistra, Constellation kind of all fall into this, is kind of how I feel about crypto. I feel good intermediate term, 3 to 6 months. Normally, I kind of would avoid these. If this were January 25th and these charts right here, especially the crypto, I would avoid them like the plague.
Yeah.
But it's December 3rd and we've got a crazy 4 weeks ahead of us. Like, so that's it. Now Talon's not as overbought as crypto. Let me just take a look at Vistra. That's a little bit more overbought, but story hasn't changed.
Yeah. I mean, bottom left to top right. And I don't argue with lines that look like that. Beautiful looking chart.
Yeah.
So I wanted to, and these are going to be stocks maybe you haven't heard of, maybe you have, but I wanted to talk to you about some of the frothier corners of the market right now, because there's been some kind of, I don't want to say insane, but it's getting a little crazy out there. And one of the big themes that's floating around out there is flying cars. I don't know if you've seen this or not, but there's some flying car stocks that have gone bonkers. And obviously, to be clear, fundamentally, I got nothing to say about these companies yet, but the charts are pretty incredible. And this is Joby Aviation. Have you heard of this one? This is
I actually know these names pretty well.
Oh,
my old.
I figured you wouldn't even dance in this part of your team. That's great. That
No. My old partner Whitney Tilson, one of his cousins was one of the founders of one of these. So I like I said, I got some Kramer-like qualities to me. When you're around for 30 years, you kind of end up knowing, you know a little bit about most things. Yeah. Well, I mean, look, I just this stock's going back to 6. I mean, probably tomorrow. Yeah. I mean, I don't know what to say. I don't know what to say about. I'm just telling you from a chart perspective. From a chart perspective, this is going back to 6. It's too fierce of a launch off of that base. It retracted too quickly. It's not on enough volume. I just think this thing's been in a 5 to 6 broad range now for, let me pull up the chart, a year and a half. Yeah, I think it's going to do that. And now look, someone's going to say, well, the thing maybe next week goes to 12 and everyone's going to be like, oh, you told me not to buy that. It's like, I'm just playing probabilities, man. I'm telling you, you're sitting on a 4 against a dealer 10. Okay. when you're looking at this chart right now. So unless you got something that earnings beats, you're just playing random probabilities. I don't like it. Now you come to me in this environment and this thing pulls back to 6. This is the funny thing. This thing pulls back to 6 tomorrow. And you say, would you own this into year end? I'd be like, absolutely. Well, in a second, super small. But now I got this big base. It's 5-6. I know people are willing to speculate in it, but I wouldn't touch this. I mean, it's just a bad bet unless you know something.
Yeah. For me, I look at these and I in my mind, I call them like thermometer stocks. It's like, I don't want to trade them, but it tells you the type of environment that you're in. It takes the temperature of the market. And for something like this, you see them do something like, okay, practically doubles within a couple of weeks. And then you look at it and you say, okay, you get a big red candle like this, and I've seen one of two things happen. Well, first of all, it's going to see 6 again. That's almost a 100%, guarantee right there. Is it going to go to 11 before it sees 6, or is it going to go straight to 6? And then, like you said, the probability is not there. It's not something that I would jump in on, but it's entirely possible this thing rips and then goes back down again.
And let me just I want to set something here because I just did one piece of simple analysis here. I went onto my Bloomberg and I pulled up the trailing 12-month cash flow from operations at Joby. Okay. This company in the last 12 months has lost $400 million. Okay. By the way, the previous year it lost 300. The previous year it lost 235. The previous year it lost 195. So it's getting worse, not better. Now we're going to do one more simple thing. We're going to go to the balance sheet. I'm going to tell you, okay, they got $1 billion of cash. Okay, so it ain't going out of business soon, but it lost $400 million. And I'm going to tell you, if you're sitting on a 50, 60, percent win in a couple weeks in this thing, in something like this, you just sell it. You just take the profits and move on, So again, I like it in the base. It's a good speculation, but remember what we talked about. We've talked about this a lot. And this stock's not a double, but if you double your money in a stock in a day, a week, or a month, always sell some, potentially all.
Yeah.
If you double your money in 2 years, you should probably be adding to the position. But I'm going to add one more thing to that. If you've got a company that's losing $400 million in the last 12 months and only has $1 billion in the bank and is losing more money than they were losing before, you sell that every time if you make 50% on your money. That's my opinion.
Yeah, that's fair. Well, I don't know. They could have a flying car that can fly straight to the money tree and just grab more money.
But
is that a possibility?
It's a total possibility. And I actually like the story. the thing is Joby is a better buy at $30 than it is at $6.
Yeah, that's an interesting concept, and I hope people get what you're saying when I say that a lot too. I say that I would like this better at a higher price than it is.
But this one's a little bit different, and we're gonna run out of time here. But what I'm actually saying is that Joby will get sustainably to $30 when it's cash flow positive.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and I think there's a huge market for this. There is an absolute believable dream, whether it actually comes true or not. It's like the what sports team do I want to pick on? It's like the Jets winning the Super Bowl. Okay, it's possible.
Could happen.
But I want to bet on the Jets winning the Super Bowl when they're 10-3 on the season. Right now, could Joby win the Super Bowl? Yeah, but Joby's 2-8. Okay, is not a good bet.
Right.
But if they get to 30 billion in market cap, it's probably because they've got, cash flow and all these other things. So with a lot of these big picture, these cash burning, big picture ideas, you see what I did there. I was very simple. How much cash did you burn? How much cash do you have? How much time do you have? And then that's a measure of your risk when you're looking at speculative stocks. Yeah. Cool company. I don't know that I'd ever get in one of these though. I don't like the risk reward.
Yeah, I don't like flying in big planes. I don't think I would get in a tiny personal one. But it's a concept. And like I said, or like you were saying, it could just be way ahead of its time. I mean, maybe it gets there, maybe it doesn't. But yeah, definitely a 2. I think 2 and 8 might be generous. Maybe they're 1 and 8.
Yeah. So you said you had what were a couple more? What the last couple minutes we have here?
What's the other flying car one? This one I'm not very familiar with. EVTL. Same.
Yeah, I mean it's just the same chart.
Chart.
I mean, yeah.
but it's so funny to me when it's the market loves to grab onto these super speculative themes at the exact same time, and this is the time of year where they start to do it. And like I said, it's a thermometer, it's a temperature gauge. It just shows how red hot the speculative market has been.
So I think, though, this has actually been a really interesting call because we went through, a half a dozen different themes and trends. We identified, many trends that were sustainable uptrends, a few that likely aren't sustainable or are not in uptrends. We then identified ones that are very overbought, ones that are consolidated, and ones that were very oversold. And this is how you should be tactically allocating your trading capital. Okay. So quick rules: downtrend, no, don't do it. Okay. Non-uptrend, probably don't do it. Just ignore it. Okay. So now we're just going to keep with uptrends. That means we get rid of Joby and we just knock that one out. What do we got? Crypto, big uptrend, overbought. Yeah. You want to be involved, be cautious, stuff like that. Mag 7, gold and silver, big uptrend, consolidating. Yeah, you'd like to own it. BAH, big uptrend, big reversion, knocked on its butt. That's where you really want to. But it's just like going to that blackjack table. Okay, because blackjack is a game of probability. I mean, it's gambling, but there's thought behind it. There's probability. What you're doing as a trader to generate consistent income is you are playing those probabilities at that table. And all we're trying to help people understand is that this is where you put your bets now. Okay. And then you look at, there's short term, intermediate, and long term, but it's about allocating that capital. And the last thing I'll say, is just these two messages. Number one, I think this month is the month to be aggressive. Okay. And number two, just be relentless and ruthless about your allocation of capital and put your capital where it has the best risk reward. Every single day, go through every position, say, what is the risk reward here? And if your lowest risk, if your worst risk reward is your biggest position, you need a trading position. You really need to reassess what you're doing and maybe, flip it over.
Yeah, I think that's a great place to close. But real quick, I had a couple of requests for a couple of our open trade charts that I just wanted to hit on quickly before we call it a day. Square, Block. I'm never going to call it Block. I'm always going to call it Square. Sorry, they didn't change their ticker. Love this stock. A huge base. Don't know if this is fits the definition of echo trade, Enrique, but
it is an exact echo trade. It is a perfect echo trade.
Massive base consolidating here. Still like it. We got plenty of time left on those calls right there. It caught a big upgrade yesterday and kind of got dragged down toward the close. Closed with a gain of only about 5%, and it's consolidating today. Perfectly fine here. I think we're good, even if it just sort of chops along for a little while. Still like it. And then next up, we have OnCloud. Again, this one's getting into the stratosphere right here. Probably going to be taking profits on this one sooner rather than later. But I mean, it just keeps on crawling higher. And we've been in this one for a little while now, and it's looking really good. Funny shoes. I've never tried them, but they seem to be popular. So that's what I think of those two. And then we had a question about CRDO, I think, was the last one. Yeah, I think it did well on earnings, and it's up 50% today. That's pretty darn good. So...
Yeah, the only thing I'll say on CRDO, great company, great chart. Gaps get filled. The chances that this stock in the next 3 months doesn't see a 5 handle, I don't know. Those gaps like this scare me, and I know they crush numbers, but a gap that big always concern. I don't buy gaps. Like I'll tell you. 9 times out of 10, you fade a gap that big.
Yeah.
Or just don't buy it. Just don't buy it. Like, wait for it to consolidate.
Yeah. Feed the ducks, right?
Yeah.
In here. But yeah, awesome earnings, up 50% a day. That's a gift. Definitely take that one. All right, guys. I appreciate you tuning in. I appreciate you, as always, Enrique, always giving us some great insight there. And I hope you guys like the new arrangement on the page, the video embedded there. I hope this works out and it looks really good. And we'll be working on some of those improvements that you guys suggested about making.
And we had our special guest analyst pushing Talon also. So, don't forget that.
The show stealer. Yes, definitely. So thanks again for everybody for tuning in. Great call. And we will see you next week.
Thanks, everyone.